Have you ever tried to make Pokemon harder than it needs to be? If you're like me, then you probably think that the Pokemon games are just a little bit too easy, and that makes sense. They're designed for kids, and they're fun, and ultimately they're pretty simple. But because of their popularity, challenge runs of Pokemon, things like Nuzlocke, are incredibly popular. And that's why I decided to challenge myself to do something different. Today we ask and answer one very simple question. Can I beat Pokemon Red version with only one Koffing? Before we jump in, let me go over the rules that I've set for myself, because they're very important in establishing what's going to happen in this video. Number 1, I can only use a single Koffing in battle, not a whole team of Koffings. Koffing? Koffings. Koffi. What's the plural of Koffing? Anyway, I can use one Koffing, and it may not evolve into Wheezing. Rule 2, I can't use any items in battle, but I can use Pokeballs to catch Pokemon. I can have Koffing hold an item, if that's ever relevant, and I can use items outside of the battles. Now, the reason I'm allowing myself to catch other Pokemon is so that I have team members to use the HMs so I can progress the story, but I can't use the Pokemon that I catch in the battles. And finally, the 4th rule is that I can't use any glitches or exploits like missing no or infinite rare candies or anything like that. I have to play the game as it's intended with only one Koffing. So here's the issue. Koffing is an all-around average Pokemon. It's not super fast, it doesn't hit particularly hard, its special stat is relatively low. The one upside we do have is that Koffing has a lot of defense, so we'll be able to tank a lot of physical damage moves. Koffing also doesn't learn a lot of moves by level, but we do have an advantage in the TM learn set. That's going to give us some options down the road to get a bit more type coverage once we're far enough into the game to actually unlock them. Now, my first thought before I even start is that I'm pretty worried about Brock, because he's going to be a rather literal brick wall that we're going to have to get through. And as far as I know, Poison's really ineffective against rock types and ground types, or both. And if you couple that with the fact that Koffing doesn't really get any good moves until later into the game, we're going to have a really rough fight. The other place I'm foreseeing we run into a lot of hurdles is going to be when we get to the Elite Four. There are some really terrible type matchups for Koffing in that gauntlet of really powerful trainers right at the end of the game. Now, before we head out on this epic journey of failure and frustration in the wonderful world of Pokemon, drop a comment down below and let me know if you think I can beat this game with only one Koffing. Seriously though, engagement's really good for the algorithm, and I would super appreciate it. Personally, I'm certain that it's possible. Other content creators do challenges like this all the time, but I'm not an expert PokeTuber, so I think I'm gonna need to be at least level 90 to pull this off. And because I'm writing the script and doing the intro before I actually play the game, all guesses as to what level I'm going to be when I beat the game are valid. Comments telling me that I can't do it, also valid. Random pizza orders, definitely valid. So we jump into the game, and of course I used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer, linked in the description, to swap out Bulbasaur for Koffing, because I figured that the Pokemon we'd have the hardest time fighting against is Charizard, especially at the end of the game. Then I named Koffing number 2, because I'm number 1. Right off the bat, we battle with our rival, who we named Vinny, after one of our favorite Pokemon YouTubers. Shout out Original151 for inspiring this series in a lot of ways. Anyway, that fight goes pretty well, actually, and I'm high off my victory. I head out into the world, go up Route 1, and immediately get dropped by Pidgey. I mean, he just kicks my ass. Okay, this is gonna be rough, isn't it? As I progress, I make sure not to run away from any battles, and I always walk in the tall grass when I can, because it's very obvious to me at this point that I'm gonna need all the experience points I can get. Before going to Viridian, I decide to take the rival on Route 22 and lose, and then I lose again, and again after that, and again after that time, until eventually, finally, on my 5th attempt, I managed to pull it off. After defeating our rival, my hopes of beating Brock anytime soon, or honestly at all, are at an all-time low. So on the way through the forest, while I'm grinding levels, I make sure to catch a Pidgey so we can teach it the Fly HM, and a Pikachu so we can teach it the Flash HM. That's not relevant right now, but it's going to matter a lot later. The real motivator for this, obviously, is that finding these Pokemon and catching them guarantees a couple of extra levels. Once I get through the forest and make my way into Pewter City, I figure I'll at least try the gym before I buckle down and grind these levels. And honestly, it was super easy. I beat the first trainer no problem, and Brock was a complete breeze after that, is what I want to tell you, but that's not quite how it went. I did beat the first trainer without too much trouble. The problem is, once we get to Brock, he just completely stomped me. It was not a close fight. It was the most one-sided Pokemon battle, maybe in the history of all Pokemon battles ever. This type matchup is a lot worse than I thought. Okay, it's time to grind. I grind up to level 16, and I try the gym again. And I discover, to my absolute horror, that Brock has an infinite number of full heals. and that winning this battle by chipping Geodude and Onix down with poison damage is not at all a valid strategy. Not a thing. Not gonna happen. Literally impossible. So if you ever want to try this, keep that in mind. And because of that, our only hope is getting lucky with crits or literally forcing a win with brute force, which is, I think, the strategy I used when I was 9. So we come back at level 17 and we lose, and level 18 and we lose, and level 19 and we lose, and level 20 and we lose, until finally at level 21 I pull off the win with brute force. And holy crap, was that terrible. I mean, I knew I was going to be overleveled, but this is already ridiculous. And before I get to the second gym, I have to go through Mount Moon and fight trainers with rock-type Pokemon that are stronger than this. Mount Moon really actually wasn't that bad. The hikers didn't give me too much trouble, but I did get completely obliterated by Eradicate with Hyper Fang, so Koffing's really good speed stats coming back to ruin my life once again. Gotta love that. Koffing's damage is so low, even being a high level like this, that I ended up needing to use an Ether to restore the ability points of Tackle. And I mean, what a crap use for an otherwise decent item. On my way through, I grab a fossil and head for Cerulean City. Leave a comment below asking me which fossil I picked because, as I stated earlier, engagement is good for the algorithm, baby. The rival fight in Cerulean City was honestly super easy, and so was Misty. Getting pounded by Brock and his big rocks for so long forced me to be so overleveled that I don't really see us running into any more trouble for the foreseeable future. We go up, we grab the SS ticket, and we clear out the SSN without any other hiccups. Another rival fight down. I mean, we're so overleveled that these trainers don't stand a chance. I beat Rival so bad in this fight on the SSN that I might have, accidentally killed his Eradicate or something. Oh, and I teach Koffing Rest. I spend the next... And this is embarrassing, honestly. I spent so long trying to find a Pokemon that could learn Cut that my playtime for this is now completely ridiculous. Eventually I do catch an Oddish. What I realized when I was finally teaching Oddish that HM move later on is I could have just looked this up. Lieutenant Surge's gym is hilariously easy. The entire gym is one-shot sweeps, and I quickly move on with my third badge. I'm starting to feel like maybe we're over the biggest hurdle in this challenge, and things are going to be easier than I thought. 2 quick gym wins back-to-back in a single sitting feels really good. And then I teach Koffing Thunderbolt. We're finally getting some good type coverage. My next goal is to get Flash before I go into Rock Tunnel. And it's not because I'm afraid of the dark, but it is because I'm an idiot who would get lost and never ever find my way back outside if I went in without Flash. Unfortunately, I don't have enough Pokemon to get Flash from Professor Oak's aid, so I go back and I catch a Diglett. The rock tunnel's pretty simple. We don't run into any problems here, mostly because I remember to use repels to get through the area, and I'm so overleveled at this point that I actually want to try to catch back up to the difficulty curve of the game. I went ahead and skipped everything currently in Lavender Town in favor of a quick trip over to Celadon City so that I could tackle the Rocket hideout. And then I end up lost in there because it's been so long since I played this game that I don't remember how to get to Giovanni. Things like this would go faster if I looked at the area maps, but it was kind of fun to relive a bit of my past and get lost and immersed in the game, even with this silly challenge restricting the way I'm playing. The only research I really did for this run was about Koffing specifically. I wanted to make sure I could learn enough moves and that my stats would be decent enough to make this even kind of feasible, and honestly, once I looked it up, I thought I would be fine. When I finally did find Giovanni, I managed to beat him on my first try, and I told myself, okay, I'm really optimistic about this 8th gym battle and the Elite Four. We're not running into any more issues, which I'm pretty sure cursed me for the rest of the run. Not that the trainers were difficult, but it was a skill issue time and time again. You'll see what I mean in a second. We head back to Lavender Town, we go through, battle our rival, and clear the Pokemon Tower without much of an incident. Now that I have the Pokeflute, I have a lot of options. First thing, I went back to Celadon City and defeated Erica. Turns out that Koffing actually does really well in this gym. Who'd have thought that actually having an advantage in your Pokemon type matchup makes the game easier? Next we go to Saffron City to handle the Fighting Dojo and get a few more levels on Koffing before heading to Fuchsia City, which I couldn't find, so I went back to Lavender Town and headed south because I remembered that Snorlax was there. And then we took this really circuitous route to get to Fuchsia City, where I went to the Safari Zone, just to get that port over with, and holy hell, I spent 2,500 Pokédollars trying to get out of that soul-sucking void. It took me so long to navigate that I actually started to think I'd never find the way out. It turns out the Safari Zone was my rock tunnel, but I had Flash, and the Safari Zone doesn't have a thing that makes that easier for you unless you know where you're going. It was like being in a maze that liked to remind me that I was awful at video games after I wandered around for too long. I stepped out of the Safari Zone, clothes tattered, spirit broken, and headed off to challenge Koga. and I actually swept through that gym without any trouble, which felt good after being lost for so long. I thought for sure I'd get stuck here, but it didn't happen that way. I had convinced myself that this would take several attempts, but we did it in one go. The trip back to Saffron City and Silphco had me a little on edge, and I'm sure that this is going to come as a surprise to everyone, but I ended up getting lost in Silphco for like a really long time. I ended up clearing every trainer in the building because I couldn't find my way to the objective, and when I finally got to my rival, I was surprised to find that I still had just enough of an advantage to win on my first try, albeit barely. Alakazam and Charizard are going to be very difficult at the end of this game. Giovanni wasn't too much of a challenge, so we walk out with the Master Ball and head to Sabrina. And she just kicks my ass. Like, it's not even close. Problem 1, Koffing is slow. Problem 2, Psychic attacks are super effective. Problem 3, I don't have any more Pokemon to use in this battle after Koffing inevitably gets his shit kicked in. I mean, they flattened this little beach ball boy like a pancake. I tried a few times, and the result is the same. I was so preoccupied with Poison not being very effective against Rock and Ground types that I didn't consider the issues when special attacking Pokemon with a type advantage also have more speed than us. The silver lining here is that the fight should be possible because we do very decent damage when we do get a chance to hit them. We win this gym battle on the 6th try for 2 reasons. 1, we're getting a little bit more experience every time we lose. And 2, the AI makes a very questionable decision. I choose to believe that Sabrina finally took pity on me, because she's at Sundeta and all that, but Jesus. It was real rough. Next up is Blaine. So we head south and set sail for the Seafoam Islands on the Lapras we got at Silphco. The trip itself was relatively harmless, but once we got there, I experienced the single greatest comedy of errors in the entire run, and all of it was my fault. First, I accidentally let Koffing evolve, so I had to reset the game, which meant I had to battle Sabrina again, and then I had to surf all the way back down. And once I was there, I got so horribly lost in the Seafoam Islands that I couldn't find my way out of the caves, and I had to reset and surf all the way back down again on my 3rd try. This took, by the way, 5 hours. It was real embarrassing. On my 3rd try, though, I finally got through the islands. But on that little stretch that you have to surf again to get to Cinnabar, I ended up running out of repels, which meant I had to take more battles than I needed to, and then I ran out of PP for all my moves, and I ended up whiting out to a random swimmer. So I'm very tilted at this point, obviously, and I spend a very long time just staring in disbelief at the screen as I come back up in the Poké Center after losing this battle. Now it's our 4th attempt to get to Blaine. I fly back to Pallet Town, because I figure, hey, you know what, there's got to be an alternate route. I looked this up. I can just surf in a straight line down to Cinnabar Island from there. I don't have to go through the Seafoam Islands to do this. Once I was on Cinnabar Island, I was in the home stretch. I was free. So I ended up getting lost in the Pokemon Mansion and accidentally evolving Koffing again. So I reloaded. I really can't wait for Everstones if I do challenges in future generations of Pokemon, because this is getting ridiculous. Honestly, I think that alone would save me the agony of being an absolute blockhead most of the time. After all that, I get to the next gym battle, and I completely wreck face because Blaine makes the absolute worst decisions I have ever seen in my life. Honestly, who taught this guy how to be a Pokemon trainer, and what is he doing in charge of a Pokemon gym? It was very embarrassing for him, and I definitely did this on my first try with no trouble. Getting to Cinnabar Island is super easy, except for all the ways that I screwed it up. To avoid any hassle, we fly to Viridian City to get our last gym badge, and oh my god, I do no damage to anyone here. It takes forever to get to Giovanni because every trainer is like a brick wall, and he completely destroys me. Fortunately, I know a great place to surf around and get a few more levels. I come back a few times, and eventually I manage to beat him on my 3rd attempt at the gym, which puts us in the endgame. We have our rival, Victory Road, the Elite Four, and then our rival one more time as the Pokemon Champion. We're basically running a gauntlet to finish this game. It's time to place your final bets on how this is going to go, because I assume it's going to be a complete and total disaster. Unfortunately, our rival now has an Alakazam, and his team is effectively a huge brick wall. He beats me 6 times in a row, and after each defeat, I head back to the Seafoam Islands on a pilgrimage of shame to gain another level. On my 7th attempt, we pull it off, and are finally allowed access to Victory Road. To my own surprise, I made it through Victory Road with no trouble. I walked up to the Indigo Plateau like I was meant to be there, and then remembered I had to run the gauntlet. Up first is Lorelei. She doesn't really pose a problem to us. We have Thunderbolt for most of her team, and it's basically a one-shot sweep, except for the Lapras, which can tank a hit. Bruno's not a hard fight either. He just takes time and a lot of our moves PP, and that puts us in an awkward place when we get to Agatha, because we encounter an enormous problem. Her ghosts are also poison-typed. We don't have enough damage, and Thunderbolt doesn't have enough PP. Agatha is our first real hurdle here, and I can't see a way around it. I figure we're just going to need more levels. So I spend all of my money on full restores, and at the same time, discover that there's no purchasable PP restoring item in this game. And then I start grinding against Lorelei and Bruno. Over and over and over again, we take on the first 2 Elite Four members only to get completely crushed by Agatha. Most of the time, it's not even close. However, I did get one lucky run in against her where she used Dream Eater for no reason. This was about 4 attempts in. And that gets us to Lance, who was very easy to get past. I think these trainers are actually in the wrong order. But then I got O-code by the rival's Alakazam, who is much faster than me. That puts us back at the beginning, which means more grinding and more attempts against Agatha. It took me 6 more tries after that to get past Agatha again, and once I did, I immediately got one-shot by Alakazam. And then, because this universe is cruel and unfair, and everything sucks, and everything's too expensive, I lose to Bruno? To Bruno. I mean, we don't even talk about Bruno. I'm not able to take out his Hitmonchan in one hit here, and then it freezes me with an Ice Punch, which means I lose the fight, because freeze is a permanent status effect, and I'm not allowed to switch my Pokemon out or use items in combat. After that, the tilt sets in, my monitor's at a 45-degree angle, and this results in me accidentally evolving Koffing into Wheezing again, which means I have to reload, and I lose about 4 levels of progress, which at this point takes forever. This tilts me even more, and that means that I accidentally evolve Koffing into Wheezing another time after a fight with Bruno, and at this point I literally just beat the game with Wheezing before reloading my previous save because it felt so good to actually win something for a change. But my task was not yet done. Koffing had not yet defeated the Gauntlet of the Elite Four, and my sanity was still intact enough to continue this farce. I reload the game. It takes me 8 more tries to get past Agatha. I save the game in her room with her defeated, so that I have a jumping off point if I lose my mind again. Don't know why I didn't think of that sooner. However, my next issue is that I only have 2 PP restoring items available to me. So, what to do? I teach Koffing Fire Blast in the hopes that it will let me push past the Elite Four more easily if I have to try this again. I know I can't beat Alakazam yet, so I forgo the PP restoring items and let the rest of this attempt play out. Lance is easy to beat because of how much damage a level 80 Pokemon does to a level 50 anything. But from there, I still lose to the rival when Alakazam comes out. We get knocked out. We go back to the beginning. Until finally, mercifully, I manage to take down the Alakazam and then get knocked out by Charizard. It takes another 4 attempts to get past Agatha again, and at this point, it's starting to get a little easier. Instead of 8 or 7, it's down to 4. We try over and over and over again. 12 more times until we actually managed to pull it off at level 84, and that was that. The run. It's possible. It's just really difficult, and I'm a moron, so it was harder than it could have been for someone who knew what they were doing. If I were to do it again, I think I might grind at the game corner for Flamethrower, because it has a better accuracy, but overall I'm pleased with the result. It felt good to finally achieve this. Has anyone attempted a run like this before? If so, which Pokemon did you use, and how did it go? I'd love to know, because it probably went better than this did. In this challenge run, we managed to take out the Elite Four and the Pokemon Champion with the following stats. 22 hours of playtime. Oof. 5 times getting terribly lost. 4 accidental evolutions from Koffing into Wheezing. And 46 knockouts. All in all, I'm calling it a success. Everyone should point and laugh at me. I know. It was bad. But I liked doing it, I had a ton of fun. So what kind of a challenge run should I do next? Would you like to see another one in a Pokemon game, or would you like to see a challenge run in a different kind of game entirely? Leave a comment with a suggestion below. And if you made it this far, I would humbly ask you to please like this video, subscribe to this channel, click the bell to be notified when the next video goes live, and I'm sure you'll all want to, because we do have another challenge lined up. It might be a few weeks before it's ready, but we're going to try to beat the Elder Scrolls Oblivion without dealing any direct damage to our enemies.